haven't really done one of these updates in a while, and outside of like the last video that I did, which was really good, it's super polished. Kind of the last things you guys have seen out of me were the documentary, Wicked Eden, that came out, what, 2.5 years ago? And man, a lot of things have happened since then. And I don't know, I thought I might tell you a little about them. Okay, so I was just wrapping up doing some short form videos for the Autonomy project, and I was feeling emotional, and I thought this would be a really good time for me to be a little bit vulnerable and talk about really kind of the direction that my life has gone in the last 2 years, and kind of the crazy wild ride this is. And so instead of making this thing looking fancy and polished and shooting it with my fancy cameras and lighting and everything else, I thought I'd just give it to you raw. Because I don't know, I feel like you guys have seen me in my most polished sense, so why not see me, unpolished for a bit. All right, for those of you who have been following me for a million years and know all the crazy, sexy things that I do, right? Going about two years ago or so, I finally got to realize this crazy dream of being able to buy my own space. And it's something that I've always wanted to do, okay? I always wanted to have my own building because as a sex worker, there's just so much fear associated with your landlords finding out, with someone having a noise complaint, like the places that I'd rent, sometimes they would change hands and it would be a new leasing company when they find out. There was always this like level of fear of whether or not, even if you were doing things entirely legally, could everything be pulled out from underneath you? And that's just like the reality of sex work. And like I wanted to have some more security in that. And so I set up on this path to buy my own space. I somehow managed to qualify for an SBA loan. I managed to find a space that I really wanted, and I went down this epic undertaking of renovating an old library. Okay. For those of you who follow me on other social media platforms, I'm sure that you probably have seen the new Wicked Eden. Okay. Well, I'm gonna kind of fast forward this story a little bit, is that that was an epic undertaking in of itself. I didn't know much about how renovations work, nor did I understand the sheer volume of time and money and everything else that was going to happen. Like we got ownership of our building a few weeks, like we got our permit stuff only a few weeks before the grand opening, which was just over a year ago now, in which that all of my friends and colleagues were descending upon this building, and we had 6,000 square feet of it that we had to fully do. And the grand opening went amazing. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the number of awesome humans who showed up to support my dream, right? But here's the clincher, is that shortly after I bought my building, I had wanted to have a space that was my own, but I also wanted to have a space that I could make for the community, that I could host really cool parties in, and that I could offer to my colleagues as a safe place to be able to work. And, because living safe spaces as a sex worker is so important. And I had previously done the collective and kind of run the collective in a way that was very much a nonprofit model, but it never really occurred to me that a nonprofit would be something that would be a possibility for me, until Ohio quietly passed a very aggressive anti-sex work law that made it a felony to profit off of the proceeds from sex work. Okay. It's very vaguely written, but it was meant to be an anti-trafficking law, the way that all these things are when they don't do anything of the sort. But I talked to my lawyer, and my lawyer's like, if you rent your space to others, it could possibly be a problem, but you are kind of be running this thing like a nonprofit because you're not looking to make any money out of it. Just like I never made any money out of the collective, I subsidized it. And I was like, yes, I think you should just go ahead and file as a nonprofit, because if no one's profiting, the legal part of that is sound. And I was like, okay, I always wanted to do really cool big things, and I do a lot of community service and a lot of things for the community. And I thought, okay, cool. Let's do it. I shanghaied my two best friends into starting the nonprofit with me. And I thought, okay, we'll just kind of see where this thing goes. I originally thought that we would be hosting fancy play parties and creators camps and, cool costumed events and, campy stuff. But we would occasionally host things like, play parties for our local community, and would do a lot of things for sex workers. That was kind of the original plan. So a few months in, we realized that the community that we thought was here had a lot of damage done to them. I'll just put it that way, a lot of damage. And that there was a lot of what we call neo-tribalism. There was a lot of cliquishness. There was a lot of resistance for people to want to financially support this. And by the way, one thing that I did discover right away is I've had so many fans and so many clients over the years, whenever I talked about big dreams or things I want to do, like buying my own building, who pledged their unyielding support for me, who vanished the moment that there was an opportunity to actually support me. A lot of you did. Some of my very, very best pets have. But I mostly had to do a lot of it on my own. I do a big chunk of that on my own. That being said, okay, is that we kind of began to realize that there was a much bigger unmet need in Columbus and in Ohio and in kind of the surrounding states, where the culture of deep connective community, especially for the LGBTQIA community, for queer folks, for sex workers, for, creative renegade kind of type people, like rebellious spirits like me, there was nothing really for us here. And those people all of a sudden started to show up at events. It was not really our kink community, although there was some. There's lots of crossover between these two worlds, right? And this was an interesting thing for me, who has been a 20-year veteran dominatrix, right? I thought I will host elaborate, amazing kink parties. Look at the gorgeous space that I have created. No, it was the queers who showed up and kept showing up and volunteered and volunteered. And this thing, the Autonomy Project, started to take shape. At first, it was just a handful of us doing all of the jobs, mind you, and some of us getting quite burnt out. Okay, I think we're all getting burnt out and feeling really, unseen, unappreciated. And then the queer community came to our rescue, so to speak. They started to show up to events. They wanted to be involved. They helped us build this thing. And there are certainly, I'm not saying that they're not, the kink community isn't there as well. A lot of these people have also showed up in force now too, but it just wasn't what I expected. And then we started doing more events. And I gave our teams kind of free rein. I was like, as long as we can make this thing financially sustainable, we can do whatever we want. We can host whatever kind of events we want. We can do whatever kind of classes we want. We can do whatever kind of advocacy work. I don't want to ever say no to any crazy idea. We just have to figure out how we pay for it, right? And I could not believe the sheer volume of people who have shown up for this thing. Do you know we onboarded 129 volunteers inside our first year? We had 600 new memberships to the Autonomy Project inside the first year, to a thing that nobody knew anything about except other sex workers who already knew me, right? And certainly those are some part of those people, but most of them live elsewhere, right? I'm in Ohio. I literally live in the place where people are like, you're so very cool. Why are you there? Well, bitch, I am single-handedly trying to make Ohio cool, but also there's so many people here who need this. If I move somewhere else, like California or Portland or New York or anything else, yes, I will be with other cool people, but I will have left everyone here who needed me, which is one of the reasons I stayed. So back to what we were doing. So we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary by going to Pride. We had a big booth at Pride. And mind you, our pride, like a lot of prides that are happening nowadays, has become quite corporate. It's very commercial. And it's a lot of businesses trying to rainbow wash things. We instead rolled up with a giant booth and a big, like, decorated photo booth, all of this brand new merch that I designed. We have like all these like cool t-shirts and water bottles and tank tops and everything else, mind you, like that I, that I designed, and my team gave me ideas and I made. And we had a rowdy party. My friend Kasha flew out from LA. My girlfriend Scarlett came out from DC. We had, I think, 50 something volunteers over 2 days, and people would not leave. They only had certain shifts and they wouldn't leave. They stayed and they partied with us all day, all day. Like, I was so exhausted on one of those days because we had to go till late and then get up early and then set up and then come back in, that like I felt comfortable going and taking a nap behind the tent, and they just had it. They just took care of everything. It was kind of crazy to me. It was crazy because I know a fair amount about sex work overall, video production, certainly, kink, know a lot about that. I would class myself as a pretty damn good dominatrix, great educator, I don't to say so myself. But leading volunteer teams, inspiring people to create stuff out of nothing, something that was all really new to me. And I certainly can't take all the credit for it. I only think that I started the fire and that now rages, by all these people doing the things that they're doing. But I was just so humbled by it, because a year ago I thought we would be hosting fancy play parties and then I would be doing all of my same work as a dominatrix. Now, mind you, here's the thing, is I still do all the same things, you guys. I have to subsidize this thing somehow, right? A nonprofit doesn't pay for everything. I pay for roughly 2/3, okay? Because I make content and, I have appointments here. But it was also kind of fascinating too, not to have a tangent, that so many of my fans couldn't hold in their brains that I was now the executive director of a nonprofit and I was still a dominatrix. But like, those things didn't go hand in hand, even though being a sex worker is inherently political and so many of us do lots of advocacy work, whether you know it or not, because we live on the fringe. If not us, then who? But it's been such a cool ride. It has. And whether or not you identify with the queer community, depending on who you are that are watching this, I guarantee you have a lot more in common with them than you think. These are people who have been scared, isolated, have had their rights taken away from them. They've never felt safe to be able to share their identity, their sexuality, any of those things, right? So also sound like you, especially if you're a, submissive, man who's watching this, who's part of my fans. These people show up with bravery and they come here. And that kind of means that it's kind of for you too. That was the whole point. It's been a crazy thing to start something out of nothing and then to watch it grow. I'm kind of excited to watch it grow. I cannot wait for us to be able to get grant money, for us to find bigger donors. Because right now we're being sustained, by the way, mostly on donations from other sex workers and from our community. And most of our community are not people who can truly afford it. We've been able to become sustainable on event tickets, donations, of which most of them are quite small, and memberships, as well as like some parts of like our merch and whatnot. But it's not a lot. It's not a lot. And I think my experience in sex work has allowed me to navigate the financial parts of this stuff in a way that other people who are new to the nonprofit sector probably have not, because I know an awful lot about higher risk environments. I know an awful lot about strategic planning. I know an awful lot about reading the signs and then pivoting and then changing and then making choices based on, what you've got. And I know an awful lot about resilience. I think that those are things that, being a sex worker and an executive director of a nonprofit, these are things that they just go hand in hand. Anyway, I feel like I've droned on enough for this, and I haven't really done one of these update videos in a while, and y'all are used to seeing me as being sexy and like selling you a thing. And here's the thing, you should continue to buy my videos, and you should continue to sign up for my memberships, for my fan clubs, and to my member site, and come see me in person and do all of those things, because the more that you do those things, the more good I can keep doing in the world. But if my story has resonated with you, come get involved here too. If you've got, you know, a lot of money that you want to donate to a good cause, I promise you that I will see it put to good use. But if not, I'll see you at the next event. How about that?